The Collapse video series is for entertainment purposes only. Do not commit acts of violence. Five months after the collapse. The lack of available medical care is causing people to die from conditions that modern medicine can normally handle. Appendicitis is frequently a death sentence. A small cut on a finger becomes infected, and the infection worsens until the person's blood is poisoned with the bacteria. Broken bones are splinted as well as possible, but if they aren't straight enough, the bone heals wrong. If a nasty fall causes internal bleeding, not much can be done. Everyone is terrified of getting sick or having an accident. The truce between preppers and other townspeople is becoming increasingly uneasy. The preppers, who were outed by their slower weight loss, have been targeted by thieves. The town as a whole agreed not to force them to hand over their stockpiles. But individuals within the town have been violating that agreement, venturing onto the property of preppers to steal chickens or garden tools or whatever they can get. Often the thieves come during the day. They work in small groups, sending a few to distract the family while others sneak into the home. These thieves are different from marauders. They are people in the town that the other townspeople have known for many years, sometimes from childhood. When they are caught, the preppers bring them before the town for trial, but the town is more sympathetic to the starving thieves than to the preppers with food, and the thieves are often walking home by evening. There's not much the preppers can do but harden their property and avoid escalating the encounters. In Washington, D.C., the Secretary of Defense, who is now effectively in charge, has managed to restore power to the Washington, D.C. area. He had a team of engineers working for the past few months to reroute power directly from the Calvert Cliffs nuclear power station in Maryland to local substations, bypassing the large substations with the destroyed transformers. The reactor has been fired up, and the homes and businesses in metropolitan D.C. once again have electricity. It's no longer just the federal buildings. The plant makes enough power for about 1 million homes. Metro D.C. is normally about 6 million people, but so many have cleared out or died, only a fraction of the previous 6 million remain. The plant easily makes enough power. D.C. and its suburbs are running again, but are eerily almost empty. The Secretary of Defense brings in military units that have been camping in the countryside to come and settle in the empty houses. The spouses and teenage children of soldiers take up the task of running the restaurants, grocery stores, and other shops that allow society to function. Morale within the military improves, and the Secretary of Defense gains loyalty. The fractures that had been developing within the military are not gone, but they are momentarily muted. School has started in Europe. Any and all country flags have been removed from the schools and have been replaced with a flag of Europe. All children are required to learn French, as the Protector has declared French the official language of Europe. Instructions have been provided to all school teachers, telling them how important they are in bringing everyone together through the emergency. Because of the great need for unity, group differences are to be actively discouraged. Differences divide, uniformity unites. All schools will have uniforms, most schools in Europe do anyway, and there will be no exceptions to accommodate religious differences. Including universities, all ethnicity-based or religion-based student organizations are banned until further notice. In France and Germany, Muslim groups protest the outlawing of religious head coverings for girls in school. The Protector announces that disturbances will not be tolerated during this emergency. The protesters are all arrested for sedition. Some Muslim police officers quietly complained to their superiors about the treatment of the protesters, given that it's a religious matter. The police officers who complained are fired from their jobs. The Muslims are stunned. They thought they were favored by the leftist regime. Muslims take to the streets to protest. Those who protest are promptly arrested. Their homes are searched. Their families are detained for questioning. Their property is seized. They back down. The protector authorizes the recommencement of social media. All social media pages will now have a report button, enabling citizens to report any dangerous conversations to the authorities. In an effort to reduce the unemployment rate, the government had hired hundreds of thousands of people for public projects. One of the projects is the Internet Safety Project. There is now one Internet Safety Officer per 400 people. They read not only social media posts with attention to reported posts, they also read private emails and private messages. This is normally illegal, but authorized by the protector because of the emergency. Some Internet Safety Project workers inform their friends and family that emails are being read. Word gets out, but no one does anything about it. They don't want to lose their jobs and businesses. They rationalize their inaction by saying this is only during the emergency and things will go back to normal later. China is 91.5% ethnic Han, with various other ethnic groups making up the other 8.5%. Even though the Han have a supermajority, they are divided by language, culture, and climate. The official language of China is Mandarin, but only about a third of the country speaks it well. The people of China are not the unified, homogeneous group they are sometimes stereotyped to be. They had a civil war in the 1930s and 1940s, much more recently than the US. The collapse exposes and worsens existing rifts among the people. The rifts are strongest in the northwest province of Xinjiang, where 11 million Uyghurs reside. The Uyghurs are a Turkish ethnic group with a very different appearance from the Han, and they are predominantly Muslim. In recent years, China has rounded up the Uyghurs and imprisoned them. Insurgency had already been gaining strength in the years leading up to the collapse, and is now gaining strength due to unemployment and rationing. The government of China debates whether Xinjiang is worth trying to hold on to. If China might lose the province, why waste their rations on people who might not be Chinese citizens for much longer? It decides to send troops in to put down any rebellion while at the same time cutting rations. The additional troops and cutting of rations fuels recruitment of insurgents. They begin destroying roads and railways leading into the province while at the same time raiding warehouses and caravans of food. Their goal is to hand out as many rations, if not more, than the Chinese government, and thereby gain sympathy and credibility in the eyes of the local people. Turkey invades Iraq. Erdogan had been stirring national pride with great success. Talk of regaining the old Ottoman Empire had become popular, and there was a sentiment that it was possible in the global chaos. The easiest country to take is Iraq. Its vast oil reserves and access to the Persian Gulf make it a tempting target. Weakened by decades of war prior to the collapse, the country was being held together and guarded by the United States forces and their allies, who have now abandoned it. Turkey wants the oil reserves in Iraq as well as the fertile soil of the Mesopotamian river valley. The Turkish army rolls in and seizes the country almost as fast as it can move. Why are the US and Canada not victims of conquest just like Iraq? There are two reasons. First, their military still exists. Their warships, aircraft, and missiles were purchased over the previous decades and remain at the command of struggling governments in Washington, D.C. and Ottawa. And second, they are too far away from other major world powers. Near the end of colonialism, Europe learned that it is very difficult to hang on to territory on the other side of the world. During this time of global crisis, countries don't want to overextend. Local conquest can increase resources while keeping troops close to home if they are needed. Sending them to the other side of the world creates problems ensuring they have supplies, makes it difficult to send reinforcements quickly, and makes it difficult to recall them home. Too much risk for not enough reward. The US is out of the way, and that's good enough. Invading neighbors makes more sense. The US and Canada are at low risk of foreign invasion. No one is coming. Over 5,000 people in Madagascar have the plague. It is endemic to the region with a small outbreak happening every year. Currently, about half the infected people have the bubonic plague and half have the pneumonic plague. Both are caused by the same bacteria, but the pneumonic plague infects the lungs and is transmitted directly from human to human without an intermediary flea. Plague is highly contagious. In March of 1709, one person with the plague arrived in the Prussian city of Danzig. By December, half the city was dead. The government of Madagascar is trying to contain the outbreak, but in the middle of the global economic crisis, the money isn't there. Madagascar is one of the poorest countries in the world. Even before the crisis, a third of the country was having trouble getting enough food. Now there is a massive starvation problem consuming the government's attention. What the plague victims need is antibiotics. The government sends a plea to all other countries of the world to help and donate antibiotics. The pleas fall on deaf ears, as all countries are embroiled in their own urgent problems. The plague threatens the entire population of the island and beyond. People fearing they might catch it leave the island by boat headed for Mozambique. A few of them don't realize they're already infected. The plague that was contained in the island of Madagascar begins spreading in southern Africa. If you would like to see an ad-free version of these videos, go to my BitChute or Brighteon page. Even with the ads, there is not nearly enough revenue to support continued production of the series. Please consider supporting me on Subscribestar or click on the PayPal link in the description.